Welcome to this episode of Rooted Recovery Stories. My name is Patrick Custer. I'm your host and so excited to be here today with our special guest. And I'm going to do my best to give the best introduction for her. Miss Lauren Makk. She is, you probably recognize her from HGTV's Urban Oasis and Smart Home, where she's the co-host and been on shows from the Oprah Winfrey Network, TLC, ABC, A&E. The list goes on. You've done it all.
I have.
Yes.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't.
And
But
I'm
actually,
only 21.
after meeting you, yes, ma'am. After meeting you, I'm like, yes, of course you've done all these things. Yeah. So, professional interior designer, DIY expert, self-made woman, businesswoman. You do it all, and you help people that could use it.
Yeah.
Accomplish really great goals.
Yeah, I like to think so. Thank you for that. That's a great introduction. You did it.
Thanks.
You did it.
Score.
Yes. And also, too, when you list those accolades, I'm like, dadgummit, well, what the heck? What's next? Mm-hmm. But thank you so much. I like to think so, too. I love, really my God-given passion, which is just teaching others how to live well. I think it's really my purpose here on earth is how to teach people how to live well.
I think that you couldn't have coined that better. When we've been gifted experiences that teach us lessons that, the list goes on. Yeah. We have a certain responsibility to pass it on.
Yeah.
And I think when we do that, it is, there's a certain sense of fulfillment that really actualizes our life.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's just it's such a blessing to even recognize what your thing is, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of people don't know that, and they just do whatever just to make it, And so being able to kind of really have identified that for myself has been the biggest blessing. Yeah.
Well, speaking of blessings and identifying those things within yourself, I would feel so awful if I did not mention this wonderful accolade that just happened for you. Nashville Lifestyles here in Nashville every year recognizes 25 of what they rate the most beautiful people inside and out. It's not just superficial for the good work that they do in the community and truly being beautiful inside and out. And you were one of the winners this year.
I was selected. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, you deserve to be celebrated.
Thank you very much. That is, it's a very unfamiliar feeling for me because I haven't always felt that way, like the most beautiful. I don't know if I've shared with you, but I lost over 140 pounds.
Wow.
It's been a while now, but I did lose over 140 pounds, and I was a heavy child growing up, so I didn't ever feel beautiful. I was heavy. I was the only black girl in my class growing up in Oklahoma,
Really?
so the standard of beauty wasn't my standard, And so it was, I never felt beautiful growing up. So that to be recognized now as an adult is like, whoa, really? Me? Are you sure? Check the notes and make sure that it's my name on there.
I didn't know this about that part of your story. So growing up, you had a what sounds like a substantial feeling of difference from those around you.
Yeah, definitely.
I can identify with that from the recovery standpoint, at an early age, but there's some uniqueness in what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I guess we're just going to go right into it. Okay.
Can we dive?
We can dive, honey.
Let's dive.
It all started in the third grade.
Wow, late start.
But no, really. You're right, exactly. No, it's interesting as I have now, so I'm 2.5 years sober.
Heck yeah.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Which is nowhere near 12 as you have embarked on, which I am. You are winning, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Because every day is a tough day,
That's right.
It gets easier, though.
Yeah.
But now that I have, committed to my sobriety, I'm recognizing some patterns, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I recognize, and I'm getting to the part of the fact that I really was just a lonely kid. My parents were professionals. They were really busy. I was an only child for 9 years. So that early part of my life, and also I grew up in Oklahoma, and I was the only black kid in my class. So I didn't fit in really with everybody else. Even though I wanted to and I did everything and everyone was friendly, I didn't feel like I belonged. And so it was difficult for me because I didn't realize I'm very social. I love being, I'm an extrovert. I love, having a good time. And so if I didn't fit in with folks and I didn't feel like I belonged, it felt awkward to me. I felt separate. I felt othered. You add to that I, was starting to, so actually food became my friend and my comfort.
When do you think that was that you can look back and say that?
I remember my dad was the one who would like treat me. My mom was like, we are eating, salads for dinner. And she was very like, she was more of the stricter parent. And my father would like, let's go on a bike ride. And we'd bike ride to the donut shop. And like, I remember clearly at like 6 years old, my dad saying, don't tell mom we had donuts on our bike ride. So I remember food being like a secret or, being able to indulge was a secret. And to indulge, you would do it in secret. So food became comfortable. It became something that I wouldn't tell anybody about. It became my little hidden thing that just me and donuts did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can remember about 6 or so, like, when I get to be a big girl, I'm gonna buy donuts for myself because I knew my mom didn't do that. She was restrictive. And also, let's just keep it real. There are hips in my family, honey. Okay? Thighs.
The hips don't lie.
The hips don't lie.
Right.
Like that is genetic. That is never going to change. So I had it honest. Okay.
Yeah.
So this diversion for donuts was also an honest thing. Like it was just a part of my genetic code. Although I won't say that I'm big bone, but I was a big bone kid. Like I was just thick. I have a picture of me at my second birthday and my belly's hanging over, I like to eat, And also too, I think even historically with people who come from underprivileged communities, food is a way of showing love. It's like the thing that you do when you want to show somebody you care about them is you make them some food. And so.
Well, and the South in general, I feel like too.
100%.
We
like to eat.
I can identify with that wholeheartedly. I mean, we do it for everything.
Right.
Celebrate sadness.
Sadness, funerals, all of the things.
All the stuff. Connection.
Holidays, exactly.
Yeah.
And, even my fondest memories are cooking with my grandma. So, and it's like, that's what we did to eat with each other. We eat, So I think that going back, that was a thing for me. And, I didn't recognize the loneliness then. I just wanted to connect, So that was the challenge for me growing up early was food. Food was my first addiction.
It was my first medicator too.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I still love it.
Yeah. Oh.
I still catch myself now like, I want to eat. And I'm like, do you want to eat, Lauren? Or are you just sad?
Right.
Or,
It's interesting as we go along our own healing journey and we realize the power that we have to stop and question ourselves when we're like feeling that longing of changing the way we feel.
Right.
Because it's like, I'm not a prisoner anymore to the whims of just whatever desire it is. Like, because we get to take, go up to that 30,000 foot view and be like, wait, is this really what I want? Like, is this what I'm needing right now? Or am I just trying to fulfill a temporary desire that's,
right.
But
doesn't that involve consciousness?
Yes.
I think that's also part of the drinking, the ism of alcoholism, right?
Yes.
Or any addiction, right? It's like, I want to escape the consciousness, right? I don't want to think about why I need this thing, right? So it's also, that was my therapy. I mean, therapy helped me with the conscious part of being a human being, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't even conscious of that.
Right.
I had no language to understand that I had a feeling. So it was easy to drink it away or eat it away or smoke it away or do any of the other things.
So true. So to relate that, we're covering things up because we feel this like the shame cycle of I don't want to be in my own skin. I'm not comfortable. I feel othered. Then especially with food, you're like all over again, right? So for you, do you remember the earliest period where you realized that you were gaining weight and that made you different? And did you struggle with your relationship with food and thoughts around that being, the hate love, like man, I love this? Yeah,
it's so weird. So my mom is a fixer, right? She's she's a nurse. And so she's always like, oh, you're sneezing. Let me get you this medication. Let me do this thing for you. If this is not working, then let me do this, right? So I think my mom started recognizing that I was gaining weight probably around easily third grade. I know for sure in 3rd grade I started getting boobs. And no one else was. And my mom was like, oh my God, I was just developing faster than the other girls. So my body was this thing that needed to be fixed. And so I recall my mom taking me out of school. She would take me to there was a hospital that had, I assume, a fat kids camp or some like a weight loss thing.
Stop it.
No. And I mean,
she took you to this?
Oh yeah. And I remember, this is the memory I have of my mom. We had a stage in it at the hospital. Like it was like a gym at the hospital, but it had like a stage on it. I remember my mom sitting on the stage and we were running laps. I remember running laps under this basketball goal, and I hated it. I was so pissed off about being there, having to be taken out of school to do this thing. And, I remember her being so grateful if I lost weight, and like there was this reward system with the weight loss that I just remember being like, my body is not okay. How I look is not okay. I had curly hair and none of the other girls did them.
Right.
We didn't know how to do hair in that, that day and age. They did not do black girls' hair at Sam's.
Right.
Or whatever the hair cutting place was at the time. I just remember feeling like I'm not okay in this body. Like the way that I look is not okay. And so my mom would make me work out, and then, and I would lose weight, and then I would gain the weight back. And then I remember she would take me to Jenny Craig, and then I would, blow it again and lose and gain it back, because it wasn't the food. It wasn't the food. It was the comfort in it, I know for sure that when I remember I had lost 60 pounds before going to the 7th grade. And I remember I had got this my grandma took me school shopping. I had this cute skirt and these cute little things. And I was so like, whoa, I am a big girl.
Yeah.
I can dress like a big girl like the other kids could. And I was able to keep that off for a while. I was a cheerleader and doing all these things and active. But then my parents got a divorce when I was 14. And I had all this autonomy at that time. I wasn't, my mom was less worried about me and worried about other things. Sure. And she was a single mom, and my dad was less worried about me and in his own little funk. And so I had this opportunity to kind of get away with things that I hadn't gotten away with before, like being out and going to Taco Bueno or whatever the hell it was that I was going to.
Taco Bueno.
You do?
Yeah, duh. I mean, we don't have it here, but
I
whenever
know. Thank you for identifying with me on that. Thank you, because I love Taco Bueno too.
Yeah,
it was my friend.
If you've ever had Taco Bueno and you don't like it,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know. It's gone down the hill. The days of the old Taco Bueno was fire. It's changed a lot over the years. It's definitely dumbed down.
I don't like it. I'm not gonna.
I know, me too, 100%. I'm not going to knock it. Hello, Taco Bueno.
Yeah.
Call me. But actually, it was bad. I knew it was so bad because at Christmas, Taco Bueno gave me a Christmas card. The people at Taco Bueno gave me a Christmas card. And I was like, oh shit. This is bad. I never had a Christmas card from a fast food joint, And so I was like, uh-oh. But at that point, I had gotten really big. I graduated in high school at about 287 pounds. And because food was my friend, and so was weed, honey. You could find me smoking a fatty.
Those two things go hand in hand real well.
Perfect combination, right? It was my instant evacuation plug. And so that was my story. It really was. And so going into college, at this point I was like, all right, I kind of gotten away with it. My parents were just had thrown their hands up at it, But going into college, I just developed this ownership in myself a little bit more, where I was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I wasn't quite to the point where I was ready to discover what it was for me, but I didn't want to be fat anymore. That did not feel good to me, and I didn't feel comfortable in my skin. I wanted to date boys, you know what I mean? All the things. I wanted to have the experience of a young woman. And so, I'd done everything except for therapy. Right. But I didn't know the language for that. I didn't know that therapy would be helpful.
Yeah.
And so, instead of, diving into therapy, I had a gastric bypass, and I actually lost over 140 pounds, which was incredible. It was all the things I wanted,
right.
Except, again, I was a 21-year-old woman with sagging skin and all of the things that, still showed evidence of my abuse, my food abuse, my food addiction. And since I couldn't be an addict to food, it developed into an addict of alcohol. And it was easier to get drunk and much quicker, and it was, effective.
I've heard before that there's a correlation or a higher percentage likelihood of people once they have gastric bypass to develop alcoholism.
Absolutely.
Do you know those
I don't know the stats.
Okay.
But I can tell you from my experience what it was for me. I mean, it's still the ism, right? And whether it was food addiction or alcoholism, like I just needed that thing, that comfort, So alcohol made me feel more beautiful and not worry about the skin or how to hide it or how I looked. Alcohol made me the party girl, the person everybody loved to be around. That's what I told myself. Let me say that. Okay. Alcohol made me think that I was prettier, funnier, smarter, louder, cooler, better. So, and it was the thing that I would do that, it gave me those responses back, so when I'm drinking, people are having a good time with me.
Right.
And so, I mean, I've always been everyone has always loved my what I contributed to this experience, but I had told myself that it was alcohol that was making that better for me.
The great lie.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a good liar too, because I believed it.
Yeah.
A lot of us do.
Well, yeah, it lies to ourselves. We double lie to ourselves, and then it's also a lie outwardly as well.
Yeah.
And it just perpetuates.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and so here's the fun thing. You're always the party girl until you're not. Right?
I can relate.
Yes, honey.
Yeah.
So I was able to pull that off for a long, long time, a really long time. And, you just find yourself in party situations. So it's like, oh, well, of course we need to have some cocktails.
Yeah.
And, and so I was just the party girl until I realized that I was not the party girl anymore,
I wonder if you'll share just some examples of what brought that realization to life for you.
Yeah. So I think the pandemic for me was the thing that really changed the habits of alcohol for me. Like, it's always great to say, oh, well, it's Margarita Monday, Taco Tuesday, it's Trivia Day Wednesday, Thursday's practically the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And, we might as well drink. It's Friday tomorrow, so we're almost done. Friday is full-fledged drinking, and Saturday is keep it going. You can day drink, right? Which I probably already was anyhow. And then Sunday's like, well, I've got to, catch the hair of the dog. I've got just a couple of beers to smooth things out,
Yes.
And I'd always said, oh, I'm going to stop drinking on Monday. And I might have stopped drinking on Monday, and I would have even committed to Tuesday and maybe gotten through Wednesday. But by Thursday, I was like, oh, well, so-and-so's coming into town, and they expect me to have a good time. So I got to have a good time with them. Because I have to drink because they're drinking.
Yeah.
And I'd surrounded myself with other people who were also drinking. So it was like perfect to make those excuses and expect that was just the standard. Like everyone drinks, so I have to do it too, But the pandemic was certainly a change for me. Keep in mind, I had a baby a week after the pandemic started.
What?
Yeah. And so I was in the hospital. The pandemic started in Los Angeles, where I was on the 13th of March, and I had a baby on the 25th of March. So it didn't take long, right? It was like a week and a half after. And I had a C-section, and I was scared of the hospital. And I also wanted to go home and drink. Like after you have a baby, you have to celebrate with some champagne. Like I have been doing this for 9 months.
Right.
Okay. Like I deserve a treat.
Yeah.
And so
I feel like a lot of women that don't even have an alcohol problem feel that same way.
Hell yes. It's like, give me all the sushi, put the sandwiches up there with all the little meats, and I want a glass of wine.
Heck yeah.
And so I raced home and drank, and I was just like, everything was happening in that time. Everybody who's watching this knows, like, it was the pandemic, which was insane. Like a month and a half later was George Floyd and all of that insanity. It was like crazy. I lived in Los Angeles, which was even more of a feverish, intensity. It was so many people and so much going on. Like it was just a lot for me to handle. And so I would remember drinking in the shower in the morning and crying, because I would watch too much news and it was just overwhelming. It was sensory overload, the baby, everything. You lose your jobs. Everybody lost their job too, Like it was like, and what was the first thing I could grab? My bottle of Jack Daniels, my favorite cup to drink it in. And it was just like, that was what got me through. I would drink in the shower and I was cool with that, Let's not also forget that everybody was having Zoom parties and it's like Zoom together, drink together. Everyone's like having their, it just turned into a thing. And it could easily get quickly and easily get over the top.
Well, I think one of those things to mention, you know, when we talk about what does alcoholism look like, and one of the markers is like isolated drinking at home. And during the pandemic, I hear from so many people, they're like, well, it was easy for me to, like what you're saying, it was easy for me to like self-validate or give myself permission without shame or seemingly without shame because we had to be isolated.
Yes.
We had to be, you know, so.
Yeah. And then after the pandemic was kind of like letting loose. I mean, at that time, I also moved to Nashville, like when my baby was a few months old. So keep in mind, I had baby, George Floyd, lost a job, moving across country, buying a new house, like being in partnership with my husband. And it was just so much shit. Mm-hmm. It was just so much shit that I could not process. And I was in therapy at this time. At this time, my therapist was like, you know, I think you should consider stopping drinking, you know? And I was like, yeah, okay, sure.
You mean you didn't have your therapist snowed?
No, she could see right through me. Honey. Well, duh.
You got a good therapist.
Anytime, she's a great therapist. And anytime there was an uproar, you know, she's like, well, let's connect some dots, you know? Yeah. But I wasn't ready to give up my best friend. And I also wasn't willing to give up the culture around it. Like I drank with my parents. I drank with my friends. Everybody I had built my whole life system around were my co-conspirators in my shit, right? So I wasn't ready to give that up. And I thought, well, maybe they're with me too. They don't want to give me up either. Like quitting drinking meant I would have to change my friends. It would have to change my family members. Like I didn't want to do that. Yeah. And even my partner, we were drinking buddies. Sure. Everybody was my drinking buddy. I didn't know sober folks. What the hell? Why would I do that? Who was the sober friend?
I don't know about you, but when people, I had friends that got sober when I was still drinking, or people would come into my life that were sober. And I don't know, it was kind of like that. When the opposite magnets, I'd be like, oh, nice to meet you.
Yeah, right? Why? What are you doing? You're lame.
Yeah.
Right? I know. I have the same feeling. I am in shame with how I treated people who were sober in my past. Like, and I've had to make amends to them because I'm like, I was an asshole. What a jerk.
Right there with you.
Right?
Yeah.
Ooh. Even thinking about it now, I'm like, ugh. And I've said the sorries to the people that you know, but I'm like, I can't believe that I was such a jerk about that. Especially looking back on how much you have to go through to get to the point where you're like, this is it. I'm done with this shit.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, I think whether I'm going to go ahead and put this out there. I feel like you sounded like you were a higher functioning alcoholic, or a low bottom drunk.
Right.
You know?
I don't know which one are you?
Right. But either way, it's just like the depths that we go to are just so mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like, given the brain that you have now, you're pre-drinking, pre-alcoholic brain, you know, like either side. Cause I think about it, I'm like, you know, I feel like I would, when I got to a point after sobriety, I got into sobriety. I remember thinking like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit like this, something of reality that I just haven't felt since before I started drinking regularly. Yeah. And I didn't know I was missing this perspective.
Yeah. What made you stop drinking?
What year?
What made you? What was the thing? Because there has to be a thing, right? There's got to be a catalyst.
Okay, I shouldn't compare.
Sorry, am I turning the tables? Am I interviewing you now? No, tell me. Okay, tell me. I want to know.
So I was not a high functioning alcoholic. And I had all the consequences happening. I was 24 years old, and my siblings did an intervention.
After your father was sick, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And but that was the thing. That was enough.
It was, surprisingly.
That's good.
I will say, for me, my higher power, I truly believe there was a divine window of opportunity where, like everything, my access to alcohol had been limited for the period of time. So like I wasn't in an extreme state of, I was uncomfortable because I hadn't had my normal amount of alcohol.
Right.
And
you mean that particular day?
That particular day. Yeah. And I think that just the sequence of events that happened softened my heart. My defenses were down. And, I say this all the time. I don't know of another time during that year of my addiction that there would have been as likely of an opportunity that I would have said yes when somebody came, in the in AA, in the big book, that talks about how frothy emotional appeal, which is basically when your family members come together and say, we're so hurt, this is how you're affecting all of us, which is legitimate. That's their emotions and their experience. But froth, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices, because when we need the substance that we're using to make art, because by the time we need to stop, we're using and drinking or drinking to change the way we feel, because we literally cannot do reality. It's not because we're being little brats.
Right.
We've gotten to a point where it's
that's addiction. That's the addiction.
Yeah. But it's hard for people outside that lens to understand.
Right. Because it's like, just quit drinking.
Yeah.
And even me, I didn't think I was an alcoholic. Are you kidding me? The first day I went to AA, I was like, I'm just going to come in here and see what it's all about.
Right. How'd you introduce yourself?
Oh, I barely recall because I was sobbing hysterically.
Yeah.
Okay, can I tell you what made me so
yes.
Okay, because this is important for everyone who's listening to listen up, kids. Okay. So it had always been one of those things where I'm like, I'm gonna stop drinking on Monday, I'm gonna quit it, I'm gonna do whatever, right? Well, I had moved to Nashville. My husband and I, we were dating at the time. We were still in dating, but we had just had a baby. We bought a house. And I was out drinking with my neighbor in the middle of the day. It was a Cinco de Mayo. And I got this divine flash.
Yeah.
Right? It said, go home right now. Your boyfriend is cheating on you. And I was like, It was so loud. I remember I was at this Mexican restaurant in Hendersonville, and I was like, I gotta go. And she was like, okay. And I finished my margarita, because I'm not gonna leave it on the table.
Of course not.
Zoop! Probably one good sick swig,
Yes, ma'am.
I got home. I just started looking through things, right? I was just searching. I didn't even know what it was. That's not even that's not the nature of our relationship. I wasn't into searching through his things. I started looking through things. And to be very clear, honest, I don't remember what it was, but I found what I was looking for. So I verified that he was cheating on me. And of course, it went through this, big uproar. It was a huge, I make a mess of anything, honey. So, it would give me an opportunity to light some smoke, to start some shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to start some shit. Okay, so needless to say, it was World War III, right? And I was so angry. I was so full of just venom, right? I was just so pissed off that you could do this to me, and this bitch could do this to our family, and all of the things, right? I was so angry that I was ready to do some crazy shit.
Talk about resentment taking us to places we never thought we would go.
Oh my God, yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admissions center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.
And I was like, God, just help me. Like, help me figure it out. What do I do next? Like, what do I do? So I was like, God, please just help me. And I heard a voice. I don't talk to myself this way. And it said, how do you expect me to help you when you can't help yourself? If I give you all the blessings that I have in store for you, you're too drunk, you're too checked out. Would you even recognize them? And I was like, And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what? Oh, okay. Like, that's me talking out loud to myself. I was like, okay, I hear you. It was just like, what are you going to do with it? If I clean you up and if I help you, how are you going to help yourself? I get chills right now telling you that story because it's just like, it was so not me. And it was so loud that I couldn't ignore it, So I guess that's the surrender, right? That's the recognizing that I have a problem and I can't do it by myself.
Talk about a gift of desperation. I mean,
yeah, man. Right. So the first thing I did was, first I looked up an AA meeting and I was like, okay, there's one up the street. All right, I'll try that. I thought, okay, but I was like, I don't really want to go to this shit. This is not.
Right.
That means I have a problem. I don't have a problem. I never had a DUI. I never got in trouble with anybody.
Right.
Like that was for me. That was like, that's what real alcoholics do. They get in trouble. I haven't gotten in trouble. So I'm good, right?
The lie so many of us tell ourselves. And let me tell you, I got in some trouble before, but was still telling myself the same, like,
oh, yeah.
it wasn't as bad as what it should be if you are indeed an alcoholic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, alcoholics are old. We're only in our 20s. You can't be an alcoholic. You're only 20-something.
Right.
Like, I didn't think that.
Yeah.
Although I had been drinking since I was 14. Not knowing it. I mean, I wasn't abusing it.
Right.
Well, I probably was. I guess at 14, you're abusing alcohol, right? But it was what everybody else was doing, so I was doing it too. Anyway, getting back to that day. So I said, I called her because she was sober. And I was like, what do I do? And she's like, you should probably go to an AA meeting. And I was like, okay, all right, fine. And then I called another friend of mine who I had shunned for years. I only knew 2 sober people.
Wow.
And so I called him and he was like, you need to go to AA. Just try it. Just try it. So I looked it up. I knew where it was. I said, all right, tomorrow I'm going to this AA meeting. I told my husband, I'm going to an AA meeting tomorrow. He's like, all right, cool. Good for you. I respect that. But he wasn't sober. So I was like, all right, I'm going to fuck this up. Like,
So I'm always just so curious, like, what was your level of honesty at that point?
Yeah.
The tipping point?
Definitely not that. I just was like, I'm in a really bad spot and I know that I need some help and alcohol's not helping me at all. Like if I drink, I'm just adding more gas to this fire. And I wasn't level-headed, right? Because there's already all these other things that are happening to me at the same time. And this other thing was just the tipping point that was pushing me over the edge that like gave me a reason to like rage, and all of the other feelings. And I knew the alcohol was just not going to help, man. It was the worst thing I could do in those moments on top of everything else. Like all the feelings of, like I said, the George Floyd shit and the pandemic. And I think at the time it was like an election year. So it's just all of these things, it was just too much. It was too much. And I knew the alcohol was the problem for me. So I didn't tell them that, but I was like, I'm struggling and I know alcohol is not helping, but I can't get rid of it. Like it's the thing that I've used to help me. And so that's why I went to AA. Now I walked into this AA meeting and in the back of somebody's church and I peeked my head in and I'll just say, there was nobody who looked like me. Okay. They weren't my age. They weren't my color. They weren't my colorfulness.
Yes.
And I was like, where the hell am I? I thought it was a secret society meeting of like, like, is this a political meeting? Because what the fuck? And I said, hi, am I in the right place? And she goes, honey, if you're a drunk, you are. And I was like, oh, I'm a drunk. And it was that moment where I was like, oh my God, like, I am a drunk. I'm a fucking drunk. So I sat down and I just cried. And the meeting was great. There's lots of, how it is on the first meeting. It was so much love and so much tenderness and so much familiarity, really. It was all these great stories and experiences of hope. And I just felt so good about crying with a bunch of strangers, in the back of an old church. It felt so good to just cry. I liked the crying, right? So I was like, well, I gotta go back. I gotta go back to this.
Yes.
I felt there I could tell those people things I couldn't tell my therapist or didn't feel comfortable or wasn't ready to tell my therapist.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah. So I just kept going and crying less and less and learning more and more.
Yeah.
And making great friends, So, and I realized too, like, those people needed me as well. Like they probably don't have friends that look like me either. So it was nice to have this new camaraderie, this new community of people that were just right up the street and that I could just call and cry to anytime I needed to. That's what it turned into.
Hell yeah. Well, because we get sober, but life continues, right?
Hell
I think there's this thought process that our families / us think that once we get sober, we either go to treatment or go to AA and we get sober, that we get fixed and everything's going to magically be better, right?
Right, 100%.
Because all the problems seem like everything. I mean, in many cases, most of our problems pre-sobriety do stem from the alcohol.
Right.
But there are causes and conditions underlying all that shit that ain't going to go away when the alcohol is removed.
No, and the alcohol doesn't help it like I thought it was.
Right.
I thought it was, but it's still there. The problems are still there, looking at me, waiting on me.
Yeah.
And now I just can't do it clearly, Ugh, I'm so sad for myself for that.
Oh gosh. So once you got sober, how did like life start to change and shift for you?
Well, so many things, I think for me, the biggest thing that I am learning still, right? 'Cause it's still a learning process, is that it's okay to feel. And I had never really had that permission to feel. And I think everybody can identify with this. I was singing a song with my 3-year-old the other day, and one of the songs that we're singing was Hush Little Baby, Don't You Cry. And I was like, oh my God. In a lullaby, I'm telling you not to have feelings. Shh, don't communicate. Don't share your pain. I don't want to hear it. Don't you cry. Here's a little mockingbird,
Yeah.
I'll give you something if you don't show me your emotion. And I was like, oh my God. Even me, I'm as a mother, my kids crying. I'm like, you're okay. Everything's fine. Don't do that. Now I'm just like, can you talk to me instead of crying? Because you can talk now.
Right.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Just tell me what you need. Right. Just tell me with your words what you need.
Sure.
And that's what I'm learning to do is tell people with my words. Now I'm not good at it all the time. Right. But there are moments where I'm even good at catching myself that wasn't cool. I didn't like that, Whether or not I tell somebody is different, but I'm processing my own feelings now in a bigger way, in a more mature way. And I'm just grateful for that. Sometimes I'm like, that hurt my fucking feelings.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
And I didn't ever have permission to do that. I didn't grow up where people were like, let's sit down and talk about your feelings, shall we?
Right.
It's like my dad would be like, I don't want to hear that. Here's some money and get out of my face,
Yeah.
Or my mom was like, I don't want to hear your feelings. Go somewhere else with that, and I'd just eat.
It's a generational thing. I mean, that was not to finger point at your parent. I mean, my parents, the same.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the feedback I got was, well, go pray about it. And that was a hard thing that I had to deal with.
Well, there's a lot of kids in your family, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
wait, how many siblings did you have?
So we ended up adopting when I was 9 years old. So I have one sister.
Okay.
I didn't fill in that part.
Yeah.
But by the time my sister came around, we weren't in the same place at the same time. So I was still a lonely kid, growing up. So, just feelings. I mean, come on. Who has taught feelings in generations past? Right. Especially in the Black community. We don't get that. That's not a thing that you get to sit up and talk about your feelings.
Why do you think, I'm curious to know why, if you have a theory on why that is. Within the Black communities, I've heard that from many of my Black friends.
Well, I think it's just historical. It's so historical. Just take it back to African American history. Is slavery. They would separate families, and it was like, don't you fucking cry. We're gonna whip you into submission. You don't get an opportunity to worry about where your kids are or what happened. You don't get to feel, right? So it's and then that whole thing. It's in our community, I think a lot of people will be like, if you don't shut up, I'll give you a reason to cry. I remember my mom combing my hair and I'd be like, ow, that hurt. And she's like, oh yeah, you want, not, well, I love you, Mom. But I mean, a lot of people can identify with that. You're like, that doesn't hurt, stop, and you're like, no, but it really does. We didn't get an opportunity to feel, or experience the full humanity of ourselves, right? So, I mean, and that's just historical. It has nothing to do with anything. I don't, but it just is what it was for me too. I didn't have a chance to feel. I didn't really experience that. And I mean, also too, it's you go to school and you're like, my feelings are hurting. People don't witness each other's pain, right? Ooh. They don't hold a lot of space for your feelings, right?
Yes.
So if your girlfriend or one of your friends calls you today and is like, oh my God, I've had the worst day ever. This, that, or the third thing happened to me and I'm having a terrible day. The first thing we want to do as human beings is to fix it. Well, let's look at the bright side. Or, it's not I'm just going to sit here with you in your pain.
Yeah.
And just feel that for you. Yeah, that sucks. No one validates that. They're like, okay, girl, you want to go drink about it? Honey,
people either get uncomfortable
100%.
Or you have people like me who are, I struggle with codependency and wanting to fix things. Mm-hmm. And so what appeared to me naturally is being the good person to come along someone in a place of pain wasn't it's not talking about being uncomfortable. It was purely a place of thinking that doing right by someone in pain is helping to get them back to a perspective of gratitude and whatever and all this stuff. There's a time and place for that.
Yes.
But if we can't ourselves, if we're going through the stuff, we got to feel it. We got to process it. We got to do all the things. We can't get a place of gratitude and healing and all those things if we haven't walked through it.
Yeah.
Who wants to be lonely walking through it?
No shit. But also, the process of processing. I never had those tools. No one gave me those tools for my tool belt and said, let's process this.
Because they didn't have it either.
Nobody did. Exactly. And they can't give what they didn't have.
Oof. And I feel like we're really lucky to be alive in this day and age where we have access to.
Yes.
Not everybody does, but hopefully more and more in our lifetime, we're going to see that access broaden. One of the reasons why we, do this show is to help stories reach people that, I mean, I know that so many people are tuning in to this episode today going, gosh, I can relate to this or that.
And I want to say that's why I do this, because I was so scared to talk about me being sober. I didn't want to tell anybody. Like, I was like, okay, cool, I'm sober. I still felt like a jerk, a loser. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm that nerd at the party who doesn't drink. Like, don't tell nobody I'm sober. It's like my personal thing.
Well, you work in media. So like, I have to think that is compounded for you because it's everybody in that realm socializes through
we get the
liquid
best
courage.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
Best of the best.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to tell anybody I was sober because I didn't want anyone to look at me differently or think or other me and make me feel different, and I was so scared to even say it because I thought, well, if I tell people I'm sober, then they're gonna think I had a problem, or like I don't know what that even means because I think I had a problem,
right?
But it wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't the problem that I see on TV where it's like, I didn't have the intervention problem, although I would watch intervention drinking, which I thought was hilarious. A mess.
Right.
A mess.
I think there's this fear that we have. I don't know if you can relate to this, but there's this fear that like we can't identify. It's the fear of the unknown that all of a sudden, once we get honest about our addiction, that all of a sudden everyone in our life is going to start taking into question all of our interactions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How they relate to us, or we relate to them, what we really meant, what we really didn't do. Right. And it's something that we have absolutely no control over.
Absolutely. I know. Right.
And that control thing,
right. I have to control the narrative how you see me, even though I can't control it. Right. But
so
also,
what was it? Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
I was going to say, so so that's the fear, but what was it actually like when you came out of the sober closet?
Yes. God. It's the same fear I had when I shared on television, national television, that I had lost 140 pounds and what that felt like. I was so scared, but the response was so beautiful. Like I still to this day, I got goosebumps talking about it. Almost every day, someone writes me, DMs me and says, hey, I'm looking to get sober and I was hoping you could give me some pointers. I want to start my sober journey and I just don't know how. I feel helpless and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, here's what I did.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I did and how I'm doing it still. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I just recognize that the response has not been like, oh, you had a problem. It's like, hey, I have a problem too. And that's why I'm here with you today, like to talk about it, because there's so much. This is the work, right? Giving back in this way. This is the service, is sharing experience, strength, and hope to other people, right? And it gives me so much joy. This is my purpose too, right? I'm realizing that all the things that I did, all the drinks I had, all the positions I put myself in, all the dumb shit I was doing was only for this moment, because this is the gift, right? He's giving this back. And and also I'm giving it because if I'm ever in a position to need it again, I want to have this memorialized so that I can go back to this. Right?
Yes.
I'm saying I'm sober today, and I've been sober for the last, 800 some odd days. I should check that, by the way. I need to know. It's nice to have a little ticker.
Heck yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But who knows what could happen tomorrow, right? Yeah. And that fear and that temptation is always just right there. It's just right on the line. It's always there. It always comes up for me. I go on vacation. I'm like, I wish I could drink like everybody else. I wish I could have just one drink and drink like normal people. For one drink doesn't work for me. I need 10. I just do.
What is that saying? One drink is never enough in 1,000. Wait, no.
Yeah.
What? Correct me, because I can't pull it up. It's what?
Well, one drink ain't enough for me. That's all I'm
one
saying.
Drink is never enough, and 1,000's too many. Or
it feels like that should be it, but 1,000's not even too many to me. I think I could go hard.
I know, right?
But one drink isn't
One
not
drink's
enough.
not enough. 1,000's not enough either.
Exactly,
We'll make our own
right?
statement.
It's true. We need a shirt. But it's not. This is the thing though. The culture is so crazy. Like wine culture. They have engineered it so that it is you cannot win. Right, and they have put cartoons on it and made it so approachable that it's like it's insane the marketing around keeping people drunk.
Yeah.
And especially as a suburban mom, I remember my son said he wanted to play soccer, and my very first thought, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but my very first thought was, no, you can't play soccer because I don't want to drink outside in the grass with all those bugs. I want to drink at home. In the air conditioning.
Oh my God.
That was my first thought. I'm like, I don't want to, no,
Right.
I don't,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. But what I found was when I went to soccer, sober, that there's other moms out there with their little mom cups full of wine and their mugs and they're barely stumbling up to get their kids' soccer things. And I'm like, oh my God, that would have been me, easily. And I'm ashamed to admit that, but I also have so much empathy for people that are out there doing that, and it's like, hey, I'll drive your kids home.
Yeah.
Let me take them home. I'll take them. How about we go get ice cream and I'll bring them to your house, How about you get in the car with me and you don't drive home and
Right.
don't get any of these kids. But it's like this, what are you waiting for? If you are somebody who's out there experiencing something similar, like, does it take you killing some kids after happy hour on the way home from work? Is it going to take you going to jail and embarrassing yourself, in front of everybody and everyone that you love? Does it need to get that bad for you to recognize that you have a problem? And that was one of the messages that I had on my first day at AA. It was like, you don't need a disgusting uproar that will irrevocably, is that the word?
Irrevocably, yeah.
Yeah, irrevocably change how people see you in order for you to make a change in yourself, right? I do live on a national stage now. I don't want it to be nationally known that I took out a bus stop of kids, I don't want that. And I know that if I have to wait till it gets to that point to make a change, then I'm already too far gone. Like, I don't want to get embarrassed. And I also don't want to embarrass. It's not even embarrassed. I don't want to get that bad, And so I was like, now's the time. It's now or never, right? Like, this is not going to end well if I keep it up,
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going, is just like, staying on the straight and narrow, man. I don't even say straight and narrow. Now, actually, what keeps me going now is the 70-pound weight loss I've had from not drinking.
Heck yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Hello? Like, it's a little more vain this day and age than it has been in the past. Like, I can eat stupid shit and not gain as weight. Like, but when you're drunk, when I was drunk, it was, I had gained a lot of the 140 pounds back. So losing 70 pounds naturally, just stopping drinking, has been a game changer.
Sure.
My skin's better, my hair's better, like everything's nicer, So that's the thing that kind of keeps me going.
I love it. Well, and I think being able to identify the things that make you appreciate life.
Yeah.
Because when we're drinking, I drank because I didn't like the way I felt in my skin. Right. I drank because the way I didn't like the way my body looked. Yes. I drank because I didn't, all those things.
All the things.
It's also okay to admit that we stay sober for all of these things that are benefits, whether they're vanity, whether they're because now you can go to a soccer game and you're not, there's the selfishness isn't there anymore. All these things, there's this like beautiful other perspective.
Right.
And,
it's funny you say that, because one of the things I used to do was, don't go on vacation with me, honey. I was like, we're drinking at 4 a.m. until 4 a.m. again, right? It was like an experience. It was an opportunity. Vacation for me was an excuse to drink at all hours of the day.
Yep.
And so now I go on vacation. I have experiences. Can you imagine?
Yes.
Going on vacation and experiencing a new community.
Right.
I was like, I'm getting drunk right here on this beach. You can find me right here for the whole week. Be in this one spot drinking, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm on an adventure. I'm going on a skydive. I'm doing all these things. Yeah. I'm remembering all of it.
Yeah.
I have pictures to show it off. I would go to Jamaica and I had no pictures. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Now I have memories, and that to me is really valid. My mom is experiencing some cognitive challenges. And my grandmother passed away from dementia, early onset dementia. And so if that is in my lineage, right, I want to remember as much as I can for as long as I can. you know? Because that's one of my fears now too. And alcohol doesn't help dementia, by the way.
Absolutely
right?
not.
And so if that is in my future, and God willing, it's not, but if it is, I want to remember everything I can, you know, and take every moment and live it. I thought that I couldn't live without alcohol. And now I can't even imagine the fact that I thought I was living with it.
Ooh, that statement is so powerful.
Yeah.
And relatable.
Yeah. It sucks.
Gosh. I want to ask you, what's your relationship like with your family unit now?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that. So my now husband, okay. I want to also say this too. When I want to say this about the alcohol. What I learned in those first few months of AA was also that I was so angry at him for betraying me, right? And for not keeping his promises to me, that I didn't realize that I had betrayed myself and hadn't kept my promises to myself. And the biggest promise I hadn't kept to myself, and there's been many, by the way, but mainly the diet starts on Monday. That's the next one I'm gonna tackle. Okay? Or the working out, just the working out. But that I hadn't kept, you know, my promises to myself. And so I have started to learn through being sober that I can keep a promise to myself. And that's been my biggest game changer, right? And me doing my work has inspired my husband to do his work. And he has recognized that he had his own addictions to things. And so he's doing his work. He's in his own recovery, in his own 12-step program. And so here we are, both in recovery, both doing our work, right? And doing the thing that keeps us both sober in our own isms. And so now, and he has also stopped drinking too, because drinking led to his other isms too. And so we're both sober. So I've inspired sobriety in my husband, which has been great. And that's why we're married now. Beautiful. That's why we both committed to that. So that's been really incredible. It's unlocked so many things for us. So I want to say that this really ugly thing has changed, has opened up and broken us open into the most beautiful part of our relationship. So I'm grateful for that. And I was scared that I would lose my mom because she's my drinking buddy. But it turns out I was the bully of drinking. And she was like, I'm cool with not having cocktails. And I was like, what? You're the one I drink with. But it turns out, I mean, maybe she is or isn't, but my mom doesn't drink anymore either. My dad doesn't drink anymore. My sister never drank. And most of the friends I've surrounded myself with now either don't drink or don't drink around me.
Sure.
So, and it's cool. That's not my thing. I'm like, I know this is my thing. And if it's not your thing, you can do it. But they're like, no, I'm cool. Just enjoy you. And I realize I'm still the life of the party. I'm still the party girl.
You sure are.
Honey, let me turn up.
When Miss Makk came in the building, all the heads turned.
Is he sure with his bright outfit?
The queen is here.
I do love to have a good time. But I thought the alcohol was doing it. Turns out I'm just fun.
You are.
Thank you.
You absolutely are. A big ball of energy and just beautiful inside and out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to just say I'm so grateful. If you let pain be what it really should be for you, pain can be your biggest present, right? That was the worst pain I'd ever been in. And I am so proud of how I used that pain, because I could have gone deeper into my addiction and used that as an excuse for why I wasn't living up to my potential and why I wasn't doing the things I need to do, because you did this to me and I was a victim of it. And sure, he didn't make some good choices, but I could have added to those bad choices by continuing what I was doing. And so I just took a lot of ownership in that, in those moments. And throughout that, it just helped me to open myself up. I want to be available to my children, to my family, to this life that I have been so, it's such a blessing, right? It is. And I want to be available to it, you know, and aware and sharp. And so that's just the reason why I keep staying sober, you know? Yeah. Also, alcohol's not really that tasty.
It's not.
Like, what was I thinking?
It's not.
It's not tasty.
No.
Obviously, I wasn't drinking for taste, but I mean, like, it tastes awful and it makes me look awful. Like, what am I doing to myself? Why would I do that? It was good. We had a good run, old buddy. Yeah.
But, you know, the new version, the real you that we've gotten to, that you've gotten to, right? Like it's got to be, it's always exciting because a new world opens, right? You know, and you get to look at everything like, what's this second chapter going to be like? You know, there's some really exciting perspective that we just get to step
It's
into.
so true. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have friends call me and they're like, I want to be sober. And I'm like, okay, here's what I did, right? Okay, so I'm going to ask you though, because you've thugged it out for a while now.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got a badge. Is there a 12-year badge? You should have one.
I don't know. I missed it if I...
Okay. But what is the thing that you tell people when they want to get sober?
Oh my gosh.
What's the first thing?
So it always depends on where, I listen first. Because it depends on where they're at. What my feedback is like.
But what's some like tips or like what are your tips?
Well, so I know that mine is always the get honest with the people in your circle. Do they know how bad it is? Because when I'm thoroughly honest, it's really hard to continue on and lie to myself once I've said it out loud.
You've outed yourself. Now they're on to you.
Yeah. And also when I've given power to what the reality is, my wheels start spinning. I mean, I don't care if you still drink. Once you've said it out loud, there's something in that, part of your brain that starts to acknowledge. It starts that pre-contemplation navigation towards contemplation and then, action stage of change. And so those are some simple steps. Because often, like you said, when somebody reaches out to me, typically I might be the first person that they're being honest with about potentially having a problem. And beyond that, if I have the bandwidth myself, I offer to take them to an AA meeting or whatever support group meeting that might be appropriate for what they're struggling with, and because it can be scary to go by yourself. Like you said, you walking in, you go, oh, these people don't look like me. And I mean, it doesn't matter if everybody actually looks like you. Most people go into a 12-step meeting and find any reason to other themselves.
Right. And to make an excuse. I mean, this is not for me. I'm not them. Yeah.
And so, as much as I can, I want to be there to help facilitate and like be that warm handoff to,
But do you have a thing? You know how they have like a little saying like, just for today, or what are your what is like is there a mantra that you use? Do you ever get tempted? I have so many questions.
Oh my gosh.
The tables have turned.
No, I love that you're asking me this. No, there's not a specific mantra. That mine is, I think the thing that I go to more is an activity, right? So because I don't struggle with a desire to drink now. What most often gets me is not being fully present. So becoming ungrounded, either like spinning out in what happened and feeling cringing over something that I can't control that's already done, or same thing about the future.
That's my favorite addiction. Come on now.
Right?
Don't do that. We're not getting rid of that yet. I'm not ready to let that one go. That's my favorite drug.
Right.
It's shame. What are you talking about? I can relive something from the 3rd grade. Like sweat about it all over you.
My ability to get into a place of like either being a victim or I don't know. I know all about horrible.
That. Yes, honey. But see, listen, look how good we are. We have language for it now. At least we know that. We recognize that.
And like you were saying earlier, I don't know if we had started filming yet or not, but like having the perspective and insight to know, like, and that comes from years of therapy and doing the work. Now my brain and my emotions, I'm able to have more of a, maybe not right in the moment, but at least a little bit after the moment, the perspective to assess the situation.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah.
And say, oh wait, is this really what I'm feeling, what I want?
Yeah.
I have little red flags that go up now because the more I've practiced self-care, therapy, the tools that I've learned, I'm able to identify that, whoa, I'm not here.
Right.
I'm tripping out in the future, in the past, trying to control something that's out of my realm. Right. And so grounding practices for me are one of the biggest tools that I use. I love the sayings, but for whatever reason, like they don't come to my head.
I see.
But whenever I hear a good one, I'm always like, oh yes. And I'll think about it. And it does, change my perspective in a great way. But I would say it's the practices because anxiety, like anxiety period is what I think that boils down to. And fear is one of the biggest things that tries to take away and destroy what ultimately for me is the gift of sobriety, which is joy. And so when I can come back to, I can be in a full blown shitty place, but find joy and gratitude because I know that now I know if something's going wrong in my life and I'm feeling bad about it because of whatever happened, I know now that that's okay. I don't need to be fixing myself and saying, what do I need to do to feel better? This too shall pass, just like a good day is going to pass. But I need to be here present in this moment because whatever happened that's causing this feeling I have to honor.
Right. Oh, that's good. I love that. But you know, it's the permission part, right? Like that's the fact that you give your own self permission. I don't think I learned that I could give myself that until I was 2 years ago.
Right.
I could even give myself the permission to be in the moment.
I literally, the amount of things that I think the longer and longer I stay sober, the more my eyes get opened in different ways. I get taught different tools. I talk to somebody like you or other people that have learned something along their recovery journey. And they're like, listen, check out this tool that I learned from my therapist or this or that or whatever. And I'm like, I get blown away more and more. And I love picking those up and adding them to I'm going to borrow that and steal it, you know?
Right. Do you ever think that you could ever, this is the question that I get a lot of people asking me, is like, do I have to be sober forever or can I just clean up? Do you think you could ever have a glass of wine with a meal?
Great question. So, I don't want to ever get to that place. I know that the benefits of me being sober far outweigh me finding out if I might be able to do that or not. And early in recovery, I remember asking myself, I just called it the forever concept. So thinking about, because you know how you spoke about so much of your social life and your way to connect with people and everything was wrapped up in drinking. Aside from the wanting to drink because I need it, because at this point I'm addicted, it's the other stuff, associating the milestones in life that you
I want to go on a trip to Italy, but I can't drink wine. What?
Exactly.
You know?
So I could not wrap my head around that forever concept. And that is an area where I remember having to practice that mantra of one day at a time, one step at a time. Do not trip out about the future because I couldn't wrap my mind around that concept.
Right.
And so the more and more I did that, I don't remember it was probably a year in for me, that I finally got to a place where I realized all of a sudden, I can't remember how long this has been, but I'm not scared. Like, I feel like I'm experiencing all the things, the gifts of recovery, and I don't feel like I will ever want. But without full blown going into my story. So I had this terrible fear ever since a child that I was going to get a brain tumor and die.
Yes.
Rooted in fear. My life was rooted in fear. And that was a huge piece that kept me going with my drinking. And so I remember thinking like, okay, if my worst fear comes true, like at this point, I'm thinking if the forever concept is gone, I'm no longer obsessing about whether or not like I'll be able to, like at 60, can I drink again? Like that's shattered one day at a time, by the grace of God. But I really truly believe that I can keep doing this if I do what I'm supposed to do, and I want to. I didn't know. I was so scared. And no amount of whatever I did, like talking to my spot, like that fear never went away from me. I would pray about it all the time. I would try to get over to God. And I mean, I think doing all the things that I needed to do helped me make it to another day. And that fear didn't destroy me or take me to a place of drinking. Right. But I remember being scared that if I ever got that news that I was so scared of getting, that I would not be able to make it through that without alcohol.
Right.
2016, I got that news. And I didn't drink. I went through a year of surgeries and all kinds of stuff, and I'm fine now. I'm happy and healthy. But it is so empowering for me to know that I made it through my worst fear that I thought was going to happen. And so now I don't have any. I don't walk through stuff with like tripping out about wanting to drink or all that stuff.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Because it's still one of those things for me. It's like, man, like forever. But I also say that I think to myself, and I tell others, like, I might be able to have one drink for a week or a month or maybe even 6 months, right? But once I've opened that door back up with that devil, I know that I'll abuse it again.
Yes.
It'll turn the life, right? And I will use that thing that I've always used as an escape habit, and I'll have to start all the way over. Yeah. So I just now decide I don't want to do it because I know it's not going to end well for me. So, and I want to see Christmas.
Amen. I love that you said that because I just like wrap that term up as playing the tape out, right? Like, because we have that initial thought, and I think it's very normal for us all to have in a heated moment or a passionate moment or this or that. But we've got to play that tape out
always.
And the more and more we, the longer we stay sober, it's like I think that we have to remember that when those thoughts come up, one of the most practical pieces of advice that I could give someone newly sober is just what you said. Don't let yourself stay in the initial thought. Right. Play the tape out.
Man. Oh, that's the best one. That's one.
So, okay, before we close out, this has been literally one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. Yes.
Really? Yay.
Goodness gracious.
You've got some great episodes, so that's saying quite a lot.
Well,
thank you.
It is, and I mean it.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to talk about what you do. It's so awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what was your dream? What inspired you to go down this path?
Okay, so it's funny. I've loved art all my life. I just love it. I always joke that Whitney Houston was born to sing and David Beckham was born to kick and I was born to design. It's just been a part of my passion. It's probably been one of my little tics, even as a little kid. Like I would just be at my babysitter's house and I'd be like, you need to move your pillows around. Like, can you take that picture? You need to bring it down about 6 inches, moving their furniture around and stuff. So it's just been like a weird thing that I've always done. But I was really passionate about street art and graffiti, and I really wanted to be a muralist. And I know I grew up in Oklahoma, but don't let Oklahoma fool you, okay?
Okay.
Like we have some artistes coming out of there. Yeah. And we had a mass amount of international exchange students come in high school to my school. And they were all from Europe and Brussels and Macedonia and all these cool places that had this big art scene. So my plan was I was just going to sell my little Honda Civic and I was going to travel the world with them. But my mom insisted that I go to college, and I was like, man, like, how am I? Well, I don't want to go to college. I want to drink and smoke weed with my hood rat friends, paint the town red, really, literally.
Yes.
But my mom insisted I go to college, and I enrolled in interior design, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I just loved it, and it was my passion. So I've always been an interior designer just based on education and experience and that stuff. But right now, what I'm most excited about is actually teaching the art of living well. And I've found that doing the best way to do that in my biggest passion is DIYing. I love taking something and making it new again, which is pretty much kind of like, is very similar to my life story, right? And so of course, I've been on television and did a lot of DIYs with all of my shows. It's just how we save money. Yeah. But I have really perfected a lot of the art of it. And so now I'm excited because I'm starting my own YouTube series.
What?
Shout out.
Heck yeah.
Like and follow, like and subscribe.
What's it called?
It's called Mama, I Made It. It is me and one of my celebrity friends, or even just someone that I find a very interesting story. Yeah. And we're going to be tackling some fun DIY projects, and it's crafting, but it's Pinterest worthy crafting. It's it's elevated crafting, I guess you could say. But what I really love is telling people stories and learning about people and learning things from them. And also I love making mistakes, and I love teaching people how to do something, but maybe even finding a better way to do it through someone else. And I just find that that's so unique. And so Mama, I Made It is the series. It's me and someone else we're talking about how they made it in the world, but also how we're making something.
Beautiful. Do you have a launch date yet?
Early to 2024.
Heck
so
yeah.
I don't know when this comes out, but just you can still follow the channel.
Yeah.
Links below.
Yeah.
Do you do this on YouTube?
Oh, yes.
Okay. You tell me. You're the expert.
The links will be on there.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited about it. I just think it's what For me, it's what I feel that I was really purposely put on earth. You know, I come from a long line of women who made homes, were homemakers for other people, some by choice and some by not choice historically.
Can I tell? Okay, so I just have to interject. When I was reading your press kit,
Yes.
I had chills go all over my body when I read that sentence.
Really? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because clearly you're talking about generations that went before you.
Yes.
Some by choice, some by not.
It's true.
Many people would say, screw that. I'm not going to go help other people, you know, whatever. I'm going to run as far in the other direction.
Right.
And clearly what you have is a gift. But I just want to acknowledge and take a moment of reverence for what you just said.
Thank you.
Because there's a lot of power there.
Yeah. So
and
thank
honor
you.
that.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me because it's true. My great grandmother, was it? Yeah, my great grandmother, yes, 2 greats, was enslaved. And she was freed, and you know, that's where I can begin my story. I don't. It's probably not where the story begins for generations and generations before her too. But my great grandmother was a housekeeper, and worked in the home. My great grandmother was also a housekeeper, and my grandmother was a housekeeper. And my fondest and earliest memories are making the bed with her and cleaning the house. And she would teach me how to do it. And she would make the bed better than any hotel would ever make it. And it was beautiful, and the pillows were perfect. And she would do all these things that just, even folding the napkins and the little napkin holders. And she just did the things that were all those little bitty things that made us feel so well, just so lavish, really. And it really wasn't that big of a deal, but it was just these little things that she would teach me. And so I have always had that sense of that in me. And it's just really, I think that when you don't have nothing, you really take care of the things that you have, and you take care of them and you really are steward of them. And I just love that part of it. So, growing up with her, my mom, she made all of our clothes growing up. She made all of our Christmas decorations, all of our everything, our costumes, our holiday stuff. My mom single-handedly renovated our own home by herself. My dad doesn't know how to use nothing. Okay, sorry, Daddy, but it's true. My dad is a dentist. He'd be like, I don't want to do that. It could mess up my hands. I've got my hands in people's mouths all day. And my mom's like, okay, cool. And she's dragging out, a sheet of sheetrock upstairs,
Right.
So it's just part of what I was born for this. I really do believe it. And I do take so much reverence and honor the people that have come before me, because these lessons that I feel, they're just in me. Sometimes I'll do something and someone's like, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't even know. I just did it. It's in me. So I appreciate that for you taking the moment of that. And I am so honored to do it, because I get paid to do what my ancestors were forced to do. And I get recognized on a national stage for it. And I'm so honored for that. So I'm so grateful.
Well, and I have to say, I truly believe that you are using every single bit of your platform for the good of changing people's lives and changing the world.
Thank you.
Especially
hope so.
now. Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
Okay, so I always like to close out on this note and ask you, for those people who are watching and found an ounce of inspiration, which I'm sure it's much more than that, or related to your story, what piece of encouragement would you like to leave them with?
Ooh, that's funny. Thank you for asking that, because I was thinking about it earlier. I know we say this and it seems very cliche, saying if I can do it, you can do it too. But seriously, if someone who was so wound up in my own addiction and was so bound by the relationship I had with alcohol, if I can do it, I know that you can do it too. And really, it just starts with that first step of just surrendering to the fact that it's bigger than you and admitting that.
Yeah.
I recognize there's so much power in that, but I will say this again. If I can do that, you can do it too. So I hope that someone believes me, because it's so true. I know that someone could use the excuse, well, she's on television and she's got this and she's doing this and all these things. And those things are true. But beyond that, I am a human being who has my own struggles and my own road to hoe. And I am going through the same thing that anybody out there who's watching this or listening to this right now is going through too. I mean, that other things those just really add to the problems. They don't make it better. So I just want to say that if I can do it, anybody else can do it too. And it seriously, literally just takes one day at a time. Don't think about every day. Don't think about the Italy trip. Yeah. Don't think about the wedding or the vacation or the this or the that. Just think about the one day and make a commitment to yourself, not to anybody else. Mm-hmm. Because if you commit to yourself and you honor yourself and you are keeping your own promises to yourself, then you will continue to commit. I think that's the truth.
And I will say resounding amen to that one.
Hey.
Yes. Thank you so much, Lauren.
My
Makk.
Pleasure. This was fun.
So much fun. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everybody listening.
Yes, thank you all. And I will close out by saying how I always do, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It is never too late to start loving yourself, and you are always only ever one decision away from a completely different life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amen.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admissions center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.